The big spenders are back, and now they're taking more of your money and passing it to illegal immigrants. Stuffed inside that $1.1 trillion bill is nearly $1 billion to help illegals get established here in the U.S. So is this more proof the president's executive action will keep costing us all? Hi, everyone. I'm Brenda Butner. This is Bulls and Bears. And here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tracy Burns, Jonas, Max Ferris, John Layfield, along with Chuck Rocha. Welcome to everybody. Okay, Gary B., is this $1 billion just the beginning?
Tip of the iceberg, Brenda, exactly. You know, let me throw some other facts in here. First of all, this is a program, by the way, that only 20% of Americans favor. Why Obama is doing this, I don't know. Well, I do know. He's trying to get more and more voters into the Democratic Party. But there's other little tidbits in there. We're providing, you and I, Brenda, American taxpayers, $7 million for them to have lawyers so they can fight any immigration case in court. On top of this, let's not forget, most of these people are going to qualify for the earned income tax credit. Right there is billions upon billions of dollars. And the big problem with that is not only that will that payment grow with more and more immigrants, it's the most fraudulent program out there. So you just know darn well that if there's fraud now that we have it, when we have all these immigrants come in, that's just going to expand probably tenfold. This is a money hole that Obama has created, and no one wants it.
Chuck, does it make sense to you?
Well, you're talking about 0.5% of this entire budget that we could talk on another date about everything that's in the budget. But just on this specifically, this is adding not only more lawyers, but more judges as well to deal with the influx of these children, mind you, that are coming across the border. And I think that there's going to be a fight on the executive action, and they laid it out in this bill for the February for the spending to run out, and we can have that debate. These were just the basic humanitarian needs that need to be happen to move us forward.
Yeah, but John, can we afford this? Should we be paying for it?
No, the bill in itself, no, we can't. This is politics as usual. Chuck is right. This is a small percentage, but the principle is what is important here. Now, forget whether the executive action about illegals was good or bad. The Republicans ran on the fact that they would not fund any border policy without a policy change. So they didn't flip-flop. They lied. They absolutely lied and just rolled over and said, hey, we want to go home for Christmas, so we're going to pass this bill, not some stopgap measure. We're just going to pass this $1.1 trillion bill. Politics as usual. The Republicans were given a mandate. They completely broke that mandate and their trust with the people who voted them against the system. They weren't voting them against Democrats. Democrats did the same thing. They just passed the bill, business as usual. It shows you the hypocrisy in Congress and why we can't afford this $1.1 trillion spending bill.
And Tracy, John said this was a flip-flop. In truth, I mean, this really is hypocrisy, and $1 billion.
They caved. I don't know how else to describe it. They completely caved. They come off this big victory run, and then they basically handed it back to the losing team. I don't know why they didn't fight. I mean, let the Dems shut the government down. Do something. Show some muscle. There was nothing. They gave in on nothing. One little small piece of Dodd-Frank is being deregulated, but that is it. They basically handed a blank slate to the Democrats and said, do what you want.
But getting back to this particular issue, Jonas, can we afford it? Should we be paying?
Well, it's not a lot of money, but just because we can afford it doesn't mean we should do it. I mean,
there's
a lot of things
between friends.
To afford to light money on fire doesn't mean we should do it as a country. You know, this was money that was also spent in the years before. It only went up about 10%. So I don't want to think all the Republicans caved. Like, they were allocating money like this for these very things in previous years before the president's executive order. Now, as far as is it good policy going forward, because it will probably increase, to Gary's point. You know, and there's losers with letting a lot of people get work permits in America, but there's also some winners. You know, in a perfect situation, we would put the resources towards, you know, security and jails and all this stuff with our unemployment rate was high to minimize the extra labor force. But when the unemployment rate's low, even lower than today, well, then you want some extra workers coming in so employers could not have to raise wages and not have to raise consumer prices. So I think at this point, we can handle a few more immigrants. You know, 5-6 years ago, during a real bad time, we should have been more aggressive in keeping people out. They're not going to keep flip-flopping just because there's a recession, but that's how ideally it would work.
Well, Gary B., this is not just unpopular. I mean, 51% of the people who are paying for this don't approve of the executive action.
Exactly. You know, I always thought, Brenda, and maybe naively, that, our elected officials worked for us. When you have policies like this, like Obamacare, that the majority of Americans don't want, I don't really understand it. And then when you add on the fact that, I get back to the point, and maybe, people like Chuck say, hey, it's only $1 billion, it's a small. Who cares? It's money that rightfully belongs to the American citizen. This is coming from our pocketbooks. It's not some slush fund out there that Obama can just pull. He has arbitrarily said for the 5 million illegal immigrants that he's just declared are legal are going to qualify for programs like that earned income tax credit. That could be up to $5,000 or more per family. My gosh, you add that up over the course of the next 10, 20 years, you're talking at close to $1 trillion.
Right, and Brenda, I'm sorry, but they're also going to get a child tax credit too, so that's more tax dollars out the window. And to Gary's point, though, they just didn't even fight it. I get what Jonas is saying, that this money has been there and we're just kind of rolling it forward, but the Republicans didn't even put up a fight when they know that the majority of Americans are completely against this.
Okay, but you're not against it, Chuck. And again, answer some of the objections that you've heard from our panel members.
Well, first of all, nobody's getting amnesty. They're just getting work permits, and we're giving visas to people who have already been here. You're not going to deport 11 million people, and we've had an influx of children coming in and they're kind of running for their life from Central America. So you put a little bit of money in to give them legal representation, have them appear before a judge, and if they're really fleeing for their lives, they can be here and have asylum. If not, they get sent back. We put this money into the system to figure out the most humane way to deal with these children. And I was against the bill overall last night, but this small provision that was in there, I think we should do that so we make sure we protect these children.
Tracy, why?
I don't know. I just, let's do this right. Let's stop with this piecemeal stuff. It's just not going to help us. And look, no matter what happens over the course of the next 2 years, the Republicans are going to be blamed for it now. So they set themselves up for failure, unfortunately, here. They should have put their foot down and demanded a big, comprehensive bill for this, not just these little piecemeal things that we slip in as Christmas presents.
Jonas?
I think it's worth knowing that when you got a lot of poor people living across the big border in a country that's as successful as America, you're going to have a taxpayer cost one way or the other. You're either going to fight to keep them out in jails and interdiction, and that costs money too. It probably costs more than $1 billion extra to really get aggressive and really keep people out of the country. It costs a lot of money, taxpayers, to what benefit? And
Jonas,
what?
I'm sorry, but Jonas, this did not work before. We tried this with Simpson Mazzoli in '86, '87 with Ronald Reagan, gave amnesty. Or I'm not debate the term amnesty with my friend Chuck. We gave work permits to illegals in '86, '87, and it didn't work.
No, we've also spent. It's like the drug war. We spent hundreds of billions of dollars over decades keeping immigrants out of the country. That doesn't work very well. There's millions here that we just had executive orders. Was that a good use of money? It seems like that's like fighting the drug war.
Jonas, this was a Band-Aid as well. But when Reagan was expecting some type of employer restrictions about hiring illegals, he's also expecting border security. That never happened. It was one of three parts that never happened. We're doing the same thing right now. We're not dealing with employers hiring illegals, and we're not dealing with extra border security. So we're doing the exact same thing we did in '86, '87. It didn't work then. It won't work now.
All right. Last word to John. Thanks, guys.